In this video, I'm going to discuss what will happen after you have applied for a BTO, from when you will know the ballot result, how much do you need to pay and when, and I will also demystify the misconception about BTO's estimated waiting time. So make sure you stick until the end. So now let's talk about when will you know the ballot result. So for the June BTO launch, the first major milestone will happen in about 2 months, which is maybe roughly about August. So during that time, HDB will email you to check the HDB flat portal. This is when you will find out your official queue number. Since HDB tightened the non-selection rules, where you will get penalized or lose your first-timer priority if you pass up a chance to book a flat, the dropout rate now already reduced from 40% to about 19%. Because fewer people drop out now, HDB nowadays only release queue numbers up to 200% of the number of units. So what does this mean for the June 2026 ballot? To make this clearer, let me take an example. Let's say if a project has 500 units, then HDB will only issue queue numbers up to 1,000, which equivalent to 200% instead of 1,500. By HDB reducing the queue number from 300% to 200%, this means that if you get a queue number, your chances of being able to actually secure a flat is much higher. If your ballot is unfortunately unsuccessful, you will also know immediately in August, and from then on, you can pivot and plan for the next launch or maybe considering buying a resale, depending on your life plans. Now let's talk about the next stage, which is the flat booking appointment. For those of you lucky enough to get a queue number, HDB will invite you to the HDB hub in Toa Payoh to physically choose your unit based on your queue number order. You will get a formal notification about 2 weeks before the actual date. Now you might be asking, what if you're not available on the time that HDB gave? Unfortunately, HDB cannot pause the entire queue just for you, right? If let's say your original slot is on a Tuesday and you want to reschedule to Friday or maybe the following week, then all the applicants with queue numbers behind you will continue booking their flats in the meantime. So basically, you have two options. Option number one is to send a representative. If let's say you're stuck at work, you're traveling, or you're sick, you can actually authorize someone else that you trust to go to the HDB hub and choose the unit for you. It can be a parent, sibling, or just a friend. But then again, it's such a big responsibility, right? But in any case, if you do want to do this, you can download and fill out the official HDB authorization form, and then the representative will need to bring that signed form, a copy of your NRIC, and also the booking fee to your scheduled slot. And then my suggestion would be make sure that you are reachable by phone during the appointment, so maybe they can have a video call with you to show what are the remaining available units on the screen. But just being very realistic, it's not very ideal. I mean, picking a unit for your BTO is such a life-changing decision. So I would highly recommend somehow to make your schedule work. Now, if let's say you don't want to send a representative and you're also not available on that time that HDB proposed, you actually have the second option, which is to request for a reschedule, and you can do this via the HDB flat portal. Or you can also contact the HDB sales officer immediately. But note that by delaying your appointment, this means actually you are willingly letting people behind you cut the queue, which means there will be fewer units for you to choose from when you actually manage to show up in HDB office, which means that you potentially get lower floors or facing worse views, etc. Personally, I hope that one day HDB will come to a point where we can just book the flat online, right? I mean, in digital era nowadays, you still have to go to the office and then manually pick. But maybe because it's such a big decision, maybe HDB wants to make sure that you really understand, make sure you understand your choices. Maybe that's just my speculation. Now, note that at this stage, to lock down your dream unit, you must pay a non-refundable option fee on the spot. You can pay this via debit card or e-nets. For 2-room flexi, it's $500. For 3-room, it's $1,000. And for 4-room, 5-room, and also 3-gen, it's going to be $2,000. But don't worry, this is not additional payment. It's basically going to be part of your overall down payment later on. By the way, this flat booking appointment for the June BTO launch will happen between December 2026 until March 2027. Okay, so it's quite a long period of time depending on your queue number again. Next up, let's talk about the next stage, which is signing the agreement for lease. And this will happen roughly between March until June 2027. Now, this is the big financial milestone. Usually about 3 to 4 months after you book a flat, HDB will call you back to sign the actual lease agreement. So what do you need to pay? This is where your HFE letter matters because how much you pay depends entirely on whether you're taking an HDB loan or a bank loan. Assuming that you can qualify for the staggered down payment scheme, there are actually two different types, and let's discuss one by one. The first scenario is standard staggered scheme. So this applies to standard eligible first-timer couples. If you're taking HDB loan, then you pay 5% at the lease signing and the remaining 20% at the key collection. But if you take bank loan, then you need to pay 10% at lease signing and the remaining 15% at the key collection. And then the second scenario is enhanced staggered scheme. This is specifically for young couples such as students, recent graduates, or anyone who qualify for the deferred income assessment. HDB aggressively caps the upfront barrier. So if you take HDB loan, you only need to pay 2.5% at lease signing and the remaining 22.5% at key collection. While if you take bank loan, you also need to pay 2.5% at lease signing and the remaining 22.5% at the key collection. Other than that, don't forget to also pay other fees because on top of the down payment, you must also pay buyer's stamp duty or BSD and also legal fees during this stage. This can range from a few $1,000s to over $10,000 depending on your flat price. But the good news is you usually can use your CPF OA to pay for this as well. Your option fee from the previous step will be deducted from the total cash or CPF due here. And then after that, what you need to do is basically endure the very long wait. Once the papers are signed and the first payment is cleared, then your wallet gets a break. Construction takes time depending on which project you choose. But note that the estimated waiting time is actually not calculated from the BTO launch itself, but rather versus the median month of the flat booking period. So for example, for the June 2026 BTO launch, the estimated completion date is not calculated from June 2026. Rather, it is the median of flat booking period, which is between December 2026 until March 2027. So that one very important. Now let's talk about what is the estimated completion date for each project. For Berlayar Rise, it depends on which block that you get because some of them will be finished in the second quarter of 2031, but the rest are due to be completed on the third quarter of 2031. And then for Kebun Baru Breeze, it is estimated to be completed on the second quarter of 2031. For Kebun Baru Breeze, it is faster because it's part of the shorter waiting time program. Kebun Baru Breeze is scheduled to be completed in the first quarter of 2030. For Lakeview Cascadia, it is due to be completed on the second quarter of 2031. Sembawang Brook on the fourth quarter of 2029. Sembawang Portico on the third quarter of 2029. And for Woodgrove Acres, it is due to be completed in the third quarter of 2030. But there's another caveat. Note that the estimated completion date is different versus delivery possession date, which is the contractual date in the agreement for lease, which is typically around 12 to 18 months after the estimated completion date. There have been some cases in the past where BTO experienced delays, such as, for example, during COVID period and then right after COVID, and then they ended up giving a financial compensation. But of course, hopefully your BTO will be delivered on time. And then after all of that waiting, the next stage is key collection. When the building is finally ready, then HDB will drop you a notification to come collect your keys. Here, you need to pay the rest of your down payment and activate your housing loan. If you are on HDB loan staggered scheme, then you pay the remaining 20% of the flat price, which you can use CPF OA, housing grants, or cash. Or if you're taking bank loan and on staggered scheme, then you pay the remaining 15% of the flat price. And then for the rest, this will be covered by your actual housing loan. Once that is settled, you get the keys, then you can start renovating and moving in. I hope that's clear. Let me know in the comment section down below if you have any questions or if you have anything to add. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye. To support my work, you can give a one-time tip by pressing the thanks button, pick the amount that you want, and click buy and send. Or you can also press the join button for exclusive contents and monthly membership. Your support means a lot to keep us independent. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!